Assalamualaikum and good day. Welcome back to BQS 552 Construction Technology 4. In this recorded video, we're going to learn basement construction. Basement is defined as a story or several stories of a building that are either completely or partially below the ground level. So any structure yang below the ground level, kita akan panggil dia basement. Not all buildings have basement, especially in Malaysia. If we look at landed residential, normally tak ada basement, unlike in US or any other countries yang memang prefer basement pada rumah diorang. Part of building which is ground level and which is used as a habitable accommodation. This is definition by Harrison and Trotman. And according to Scott, story of which less than half is below ground level and it can be wholly below ground level. For building with basement, the furnace, water heater, car park and air conditioning system of a house or building are typically located in the basement. So are the amenities such as the electrical distribution system and cable television distribution point. Jadi kebanyakan services will be accommodated by area basement tu. The basement is built for many purposes. For example, working purposes, shopping rooms, hall and many others. And for storage, for services and parking. The important factors in design for basement is dead and life load. This is include the dead and life load of the superstructure above that will be transferred to the basement. Next, we have wind loads for tall buildings and water pressure during and after construction, because we have the effect of groundwater and also the effect water that come from above, for example rainfall. During the construction, it is necessary to protect the entry of water. It is by providing the retaining wall so that dapat block water daripada enter the area of basement. And water from below, we need to pump out the water, which is the dewatering system that we must provide. After the construction, there's a continuous water pressure that may be coming from the side or continuous water from the underside. When the continuous water pressure coming from the side, if there is cracks in the wall, jadi kita kena make sure that wall tu watertight and reinforced concrete using design mix yang boleh provide protections against water and massive thickness of concrete. And when there is a continuous water from the other side, we can provide release some longkang lah untuk keluarkan air daripada bawah. And for after construction, there might be water from top level ataupun above and to avoid basement from flooding, it is required to properly construct drainage and watertight door to the basement. Design requirement for basement will generally depends on a few factors. Client general requirements, maksudnya apa yang client nak. Purpose of the basement, for example for parking, shopping. This will influence the method of construction. Machine to be used, the frame structure of the basement and the finishes. Another factor is depth of basement, because it is affected by the groundwater level, whether it is shallow or deep. If it is high water level, floor and wall must be watertight. However, if it's low or deep water level, it is easier to construct the wall because there is no action from water to the wall. Another factor is the economic depth of basement. Berapa kedalaman basement tu, berapa level. The construction method, whether we're going to provide top down ataupun bottom up kind of construction. Overall stability, whether the stability of the ground and also the stability of the type of construction yang kita nak buat untuk the basement. The adjacent building or the property, it is to prevent the crack of the adjacent structure. So we can provide retaining wall ataupun shoring untuk support. Sebab kalau kita build dalam kawasan yang congested where the adjacent structure is quite near to the area yang kita punya construction ni, jadi kita kena consider construction method yang sesuai untuk that area, and whether we need to provide setback for the front and the side of the basement. There are 6 elements of basement: excavation, retaining wall, dewatering system, structural basement wall, structural basement floor, and waterproofing. So ini adalah elemen-elemen yang biasa kita perlu dalam construction of basement. There are 4 methods of construction for basement, which are open cut construction, cut and cover construction, top down construction, and composite construction. The first method is open cut construction. For open cut construction, it is said that in all excavation, operators must know the line which is the boundary or the border line for the excavation took place. The final depth of excavation, berapa dalam, 6 meter, 9 meter, depends. The approximate width of the excavation at the top, and the location of any services or other hazard, maybe other existing services yang we need to take into account for the precaution that kita tak mengganggu ataupun kita tak obstruct those services. For open cut excavation, it is a very old and simple method, biasa dipakai. It is used in open space where there is no obstruction and no building or structure nearby. Jadi kita ada kawasan yang luas. Economical compared to other type. Beyond 6 meter deep, it is uneconomical because it will involve massive excavation work and will require retaining wall. Jadi bila semakin dalam, kita punya slope akan menjadi semakin besar. Jadi excavation punya area akan makin besar, and it will require retaining wall untuk support tanah. Jadi dia semakin tidak ekonomi. The site of excavation are possible slope protection. It is to ensure the stability of the mass so that it won't collapse. It is constructed from bottom to upwards, dari bawah ke atas. So this is the conventional method. And after completion, area between basement and side slope must be backfill. So kita perlu backfill area yang kita slopekan tu, kita kena backfill balik. If there is sufficient right of way, open cut trenches can be used in almost any soil condition. Generally, a slope open cut excavation is the most cost and schedule effective method of trenching. Jadi inilah jenis slope open cut excavation. So dia ada angle of repose that we must consider to make sure that the soil tu takkan collapse. Because of this slope, extra perimeter space is required. Jadi that's why kita perlukan area yang besar for open cut excavation. However, when the trench is very deep, backfill materials are required. Then a vertical cut at the toe of the slope supported by shoring may be effective. So ini shoring lah. Strut. So groundwater and weak lower layers may force partial shoring or flattening of the excavation slope. Jadi tak perlu kita nak potong sampai sini. Kita just boleh trenching, buat macam ni. Tapi kita kena ada shoring lah. The typical sequence of construction for open cut excavation: first, we need to excavate to the required depth and slope the site of excavation. So ini adalah sampai level yang kita nak lah untuk kita punya basement. Next, we're going to construct the basement structure. So this is the conventional method. Jadi dia akan construct bottom going up and then backfill the remaining areas yang kita excavate, area slope tu. This illustration shows the open cut excavation. So ini you nampak dia ada slope dekat sini, and also dia ada provide some walls here because of maybe area ni ada juga adjacent structure around, jadi dia perlukan protection at some side and also this one. There are many advantages of open cut excavation, such as allow continuous excavation, laying and backfilling operation. Minor breakdowns usually do not cause delays to all activities. The open trench needs only the design of the cut bank slope. Jadi dia lebih senang untuk design sebab dia pakai trench. Jadi just slope tu je yang kena design. What is the safe angle of repose? Because there are no additional support operation and equipment, it is the economical choice. The open trench provides easy access to the work because equipment and construction materials are minimized. Jadi sebab kita pakai open trench saja, jadi kita tak gunakan banyak materials and tak banyak equipment. This is a conventional way. The open cut method is suitable for most ground conditions except for oozing mud and running sand, sebab the soil akan collapse because of the slope tu. Maybe tak boleh nak maintain dia punya position tu, mungkin kalau even dia punya angle of repose or whatnot akan menyebabkan suatu collapse. Low cost method because of not having complicated method, and suitable for clay to sand soil because of low soil settlement. However, there are numbers of disadvantages for this method. Site must large enough to apply this technique. Jadi kalau ada adjacent structures ataupun in congested area, this method is not suitable. The slope of the bank require more excavation and backfill volume than other methods. Di banyak spoils and we have to bring out and kita akan backfill semula dekat area slope tu. The only bank support is the strength of the soil. If drying, flooding or change of soil properties weaken the soil, then slosing and collapse can happen with little or no warning. Okay, jadi agak berbahaya sebab kalau terjadinya flood ataupun mungkin change of the properties and whatnot, jadi tanah tu mungkin akan runtuh. Okay. The slope banks require a wider work area. The bank slope may force the use of larger equipment because of the distance to reach into the trench is increased, and a greater volume of soil must be excavated and backfilled. Jadi you need bigger machineries, bigger excavators untuk move around because you need to move a lot of soils and kena ada backfilling process juga. The speed of construction, it is lowest performance because of dia pakai conventional method which is bottoms upwards, and the depth not exceeding 2-story height. The next method we're going to look is cut and cover method. The cut and cover construction technique has been used for many years as means of building underground transportation facilities. This method involved the installation of temporary walls to support the site of excavation, a bracing system, control groundwater, and underpinning for the adjacent structure where necessary. It is normally carried out in urban area, and the choice of using permanent temporary retaining wall depends on the groundwater condition. The sequence of construction for cut and cover method include: first, construction of retaining wall, whether it is permanent or temporary. For permanent retaining wall, we might use diaphragm wall, contiguous profile or second piles. And for temporary retaining wall, we might use sheet piles or solder piles. Next, excavation will take place and strutting will have to be done to make sure that the retaining wall will not collapse. Next, construct the structure which is bottoms up. The permanent retaining wall will be made up of diaphragm wall ataupun contiguous ataupun second piles as I mentioned. During construction, it acts as retaining wall with no working space. The temporary retaining wall made up of solder piles and timber boarding. Okay, ini as I mentioned, So sebenarnya dekat sini mungkin ada the temporary wall and then dia akan pasang timber boarding dekat depan soldier piles tu The permanent structure, which is the new basement wall, will be built slightly inside dekat dalam retaining wall ni, thus providing working space 1 to 2 meter. Jadi kita akan construct formation level juga dekat bawah ni and construct lah for every floor that we need and then backfilling where required. Okay, so area yang kita perlu, mungkin ada area yang kita ada korek dan kita perlu backfill semula, and then removing any temporary retaining wall. So kita akan remove lah lepas kita dah bina the slab, then we can remove the temporary retaining wall. The illustration shows the soldier piles and lagging. Here we have soldier piles at the side and strutting is used to make sure that the piles will not collapse. And same goes here with the sheet piles. We need to provide strut to make sure that the wall will not collapse because of the force of the ground. This is the example of the cut and cover tunnel ramp. This is strutting. Strutting ni bukan kecil, besar sebenarnya. Next, we look at the top-down construction method. Top-down construction method is the extension of the cut and cover techniques. It employed the permanent basement structure for support. Basement floor slab are cast before excavation took place. Excavation phase with the basement floor slab acting as struts for the external walls. Jadi slab tu yang menjadi struts. Make use of the permanent elements to provide rigidity and bracing. So kat sini kita tak pakai temporary bracing. For the sequence of construction for this method, first we need to construct the permanent structural retaining wall, which is here, along the proposed basement perimeter. So proposed basement perimeter maksudnya keliling semua, keliling the retaining wall where it is required. Step 2, we need to construct the pre-founded columns over the proposed floor plan, which is we might use H steel section that will be inserted into the pre-bored holes. For example, if this is the basement, so ini adalah permanent structure retaining wall, and we might need the pre-founded column maybe dekat tengah-tengah. Okay. For step number 3, we need to construct the slab on the ground slab, so that it rests on all the pre-founded columns, which an allowance for several predetermined openings of access. Because of ada these pre-founded columns, our openings tak boleh jadi besar sangat sebab dia ada gangguan daripada that column. And step number 4, the first excavation using several small machines drive down through the openings and start excavating. Daripada ground ni mungkin akan ada openings lah. Dia akan masuk daripada ground level ni, akan ada opening So machinery semua boleh masuk ikut that openings yang ada. Temporary small located near the openings to be hauled and loaded and cut away from site. Jadi dibawa keluar daripada site. The important factors to be considered here are the artificial lightings and adequate ventilation system. Bila kita masuk ke bawah, because of the openings is small, jadi mungkin kita tak cukup pencahayaan and also tak ada ventilation system. And also at the same time, we can extend column and cast first floor slab atas ni. So kalau kita ada bangunan yang bertingkat tinggi ke atas, kita boleh buat dia concurrently, bersama-sama. Maksudnya construction of basement boleh to place at the same time, construction for upper floor pun boleh dijalankan juga. Next step, repeat step 3 to step 4 for the next lower floor downwards. Tadi kita dah excavate up until here, Jadi kita akan construct ataupun cast lower level of the basement. And kita akan excavate lagi bawah ni lah untuk another level bawah below lagi ya. Dan kita repeat lagi, sama juga kita akan construct or cast another slab below and then excavate the ground yang dekat sini pula, so that boleh construct another level below. And at the same time boleh lagi terus construct column and cast second floor, so makin naik lah bangunan ni and it will repeat again. Kita akan cast lagi here, and maybe if you have another level below, then kita akan excavate lagi tanah dekat area bawah and then bawa keluar, and at the same time bolehlah construct another level. Jadi dia akan berjalan concurrently. Superstructure and underground structure akan berjalan sekali lah. This is the illustration of the top down method. Sama saja. So kalau you nampak kat sini masih lagi ada pre-founded pile yang kita letak pada tengah-tengah area basement kita tu untuk support. And ini adalah clear space yang kita need to provide so that boleh ada movement maksudnya masa kita bina dekat below ground level tu boleh machineries boleh masuk and so on, and kita boleh cast the substructure below. There are many advantages for top-down construction. For instance, superstructure works can be constructed without affecting the basement work. Jadi dia boleh jalan concurrently. Speed and estimated saving of 3 to 6 months in construction period, cepat. Fast completion so that early return of investment. Can apply in congested or non-congested area. With the construction of the retaining wall, it will eliminate the risk of soil settlement. The permanent structural members, which is the retaining wall, will provide the excavation support, thus eliminating costs for temporary work. It's suited for tall building in a confined area, and the depth is normally over 2 story of basement. Jadi dia lebih ekonomi kalau kita construct basement yang lebih daripada 2 story. However, there are disadvantages for top-down method, such as problem of excavating in dark and dusty situation even with artificial lighting, because of the opening that this method provide obstruct the lighting daripada atas jadi kita perlukan artificial lighting, and when the ventilation is not enough, jadi akan berhabuk lah dekat area tu. Limited headroom and working area during casting of concrete slab, boring of holes and inserted pre-founded column. Working space available once the basement slab are constructed. Jadi bila basement slab ni construct, baru ada working space. Not allow working space and sloping because it have the retaining wall. This is the example for contiguous bore pile that is constructed for this method. This is the rig boring wall piles where we need to drill holes to cast the bore pile inside. And second, walls and columns construction. This is the construction for diaphragm wall. Then we need to excavate the soil first before we can construct the diaphragm wall. Reinforcing cage installation for the wall of the basement. And the guide wall construction for piling. So piling dekat sini bukan kita pakai driven piles. We're going to use bore pile method. This is the completed second pile walls. And the process for spoil removal from one of 2 molding holes. Jadi nampak ada long arm dekat sini yang akan haul keluarkan the spoils daripada the excavation area. And piling gets underway from the former ground floor slab. Now excavation for basement level 1 and 2. Nampak the small excavator here. The existing massive pile raft at new basement 2 level was broken up with explosive charges at night and cleared during the day. So ini adalah existing structure yang perlu dimusnahkan lah. That's why dia pakai explosive. Excavation of basement level 3, finally including breaking up existing large number piles that were part of the observational method contingency arrangement. Next, we have the composite construction. This is the last method. For the composite construction techniques, it introduced with the aim of overcoming the disadvantage of working in dusty and dark environment. The main difference in the construction of pre-founded columns along the perimeter only. Jadi, for example, this is the basement area. So, construction of pre-founded column takkan berada dekat tengah-tengah lah. Okay, jadi dia akan berada pada perimeter of the basement ni. So, dia tak mengganggu area tengah-tengah construction tu. Mixture of top-down and bottom-up construction techniques, and the main objective is to optimize top-down techniques by solving problem of excavation in limited headroom condition. The perimeter structure walls will support the excavation phase and pre-founded column are then installed. The band of supported slab over this pre-founded column will give natural daylight and better ventilation through the middle or core areas of the proposed floor plan. This will facilitate easy excavating, haulage loading and carting away of excavated materials as well as good access for bringing new material. Disebabkan tak ada kolom dekat tengah-tengah tu and the slab, band of slab yang akan support the pre-founded column ni. Jadi dia tak mengganggu area yang besar lah. So, jadi area untuk opening tu lebih besar for this composite construction. As a whole, this method is basically adalah combination of perimeter area which is the top-down method and core area which is the bottom-up method. So the construction, mula-mula perimeter portion of story 1 slab is cast off the ground using pre-founded column that will support the floor slab and excavate to the middle portion to the basement 1 formation level. Jadi kat tengah-tengah tu ada opening, ada area yang boleh diakses dan kita akan excavate basement 1 formation level. After completing basement 1 slab, middle portion of story 1 slab is then constructed in bottom up upwards. The selection factors for type of method untuk construct the basement will be affected by the following. First is site constraint, which include accessibility to the site and proximity of the existing building. As we know, open cut techniques dia perlukan kawasan yang besar. Jadi kita kena consider ada existing building ataupun dia dekat dalam yang congested area. And then we have soil condition, whether it consists of sand, clay ataupun silt. And this is vital for the open cut techniques. For open cut techniques, dia akan perlukan slope. So slopes tu kita tak nak dia runtuh masa construction. Therefore, we cannot use this method kalau kita di kawasan yang bertanah macam muddy area ataupun sand yang senang runtuh. And then space for soil slopes within the perimeter of the site and the speed of construction. Contohnya macam open cut techniques, it is slow because it is very conventional. However, we have other techniques yang lebih cepat and maybe lebih cost effective. Whether the depth of basement is depth enough to justify the use of technique with economic, or maybe kalau kita perlukan basement yang more than 2 floors, we can consider using top down ataupun composite method. Whether the area is accessible enough for operation associated with the techniques and the cost of construction in terms of economics. The end of the recorded video. Thank you for your attention. I will end this recorded video with the quote from Michael Jordan: "I have failed over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed." Thank you so much, everyone. Bye, and have a nice day.